Hello, everybody. I'm Ben Hansen with MinnMax, and I'm here with...
Hey, it's me, Jeff Cork.
Jeff Cork! Thanks to everybody in the community for letting us hit a goal, supporting and spreading the good word about MinnMax. Not necessarily good. The word about MinnMax. Letting us hit the goal on Patreon. We have unlocked a new podcast with our dear old friend and former coworker, Jeff Cork.
Yeah, the community has no one but themselves to blame. We'll just put that out there.
That's right. And when that goal was reached, I kicked down Jeff Cork's door and dragged him out of his house kicking and screaming away from his family.
Yeah. It reminds me, my door was actually a curtain. So you just kind of passed through it. I think you put too much weight into it. You fell in awkwardly. And I wasn't kicking and screaming. I was giggling. I was excited. Because you look like quite the fool kicking in my curtain.
That's very true. Thank you, Jeff Cork, for being here. So you are calling in from your house for this discussion. But
yes,
the plan is for the future of this podcast, which we have a lot to get into, that you're going to join us in the MinnMax studio, safe distance, opposite ends of the table. Don't even make eye contact with me, please.
Exactly. I'm going to steal one of those plexiglass partitions that they've been using at Target.
Yeah. Okay.
They don't seem like they're secured very well. I've been loosening the bolts on one of them in particular. Check stand 7 out in Maple Grove, so we'll see.
Shout out! Jeff, we've done a couple podcasts together at this point.
It's true.
A lot of episodes of the Game Informer show, which are still on, and it's going great. But we had a couple side gigs, which we were paid handsomely for, where we reviewed each and every episode of the original Twilight Zone series, and I guess the Jordan Peele reboot, but we don't need to talk too much about that. But that was called the Twilight Highlight Zone. That was a standalone podcast that we started back in 2013, I think. You can still find that. It's now kind of sort of part of the MinnMax network, kind of on the down low. Don't tell anybody. And then after that, we got crazy, and we have another podcast called The Fire Inside Out, where we review every song and really every aspect of the lives of the band members from the band AFI.
Yes.
Which
you would be very disappointed in me if you realized how long it took for me to realize that you were saying all of that for the benefit of the listeners and not me. Because I was thinking to myself, like, yeah, I remember all this, dude. I was there for most of those recordings.
My God. We talked about Davey Havoc for so long. So you can find that. That's called The Fire Inside Out. But ever since we wrapped that up, or we ran out of AFI albums to talk about, we've been talking about, like, okay, what should we do next? What podcast should we start next? We bandied about many ideas, different TV shows, films, concepts. And then it was before MinnMax, I believe, but things just started kind of zooming out. And it's like, you know what we should do is just make a podcast to kind of kick ourselves in the butt a little bit. And so MinnMax, the early pitch was, this thing is about games, friends, and getting better. And a lot of people have been taking that last part and asking questions about, our lives, or just ways that they're getting better during the quarantine on the MinnMax Show podcast. But I feel like it's definitely been the weakest part of that trifecta. And so with this podcast, we're hoping to kind of fill that gap, plug that hole. And this podcast is solely about getting better, Jeff Cork.
Yeah. So what's the pitch then? How do you go about solely getting better, Ben Hansen?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I have found every once in a while, when it's like, okay, I could probably lose like 5 pounds. I'm on the skinnier edge now, so I'm doing all right. But every once in a while, it's like, I got to lose a little bit of weight, right? Tricky to do. I think a huge part of that and getting better in general is accountability. And so every once in a while, it's like, okay, my friends and I, let's put some gambling down. Let's put $20 in a pot. Whoever loses the most weight in a month gets the money. Probably not the healthiest thing to do at times, because it can get pretty competitive and stuff like that. But I think that is an important factor for just being held accountable for what you're trying to do. Because anybody can just say, I'm trying to learn Spanish. Okay, bye. But if you had somebody checking in on you every month, kicking down your curtain and saying, hey, Spanish boy, get out of here.
Yeah, talking with that weird voice too.
That's right. And so that's what this podcast is all about. It's about us coming up with ways that we want to get better for ourselves. But the important thing is ways for the community to improve themselves as well. Because more than any other podcast we have in our past or on the MinnMax network currently, this is going to be a very heavy community involvement show.
It's exciting. So then here's a question for you. Are we going to have the same goal every time? Or are we going to each pursue our own individual goals and then check in at a certain amount of time?
So here's what it is. Okay, so this podcast, which, by the way, we're going to call BetterQuest. It rolls right off the tongue, right? Fun.
It really does.
Tie-in. And so with BetterQuest, it's like, okay, we're trying to figure out what we're going to get better at, check in every once in a while. So it's going to be once a month. So every month we're going to check in, let you know how we're doing. The community can check in, let us know how they're doing, everything like that. Format-wise, just to get this out of the way, this is going to be, because having a podcast feed that updates once a month seems very silly. So this is going to be available for free on MinnMax's YouTube channel, posted once a month. And then also at the same time, if you want to unlock the podcast version, you can support us at patreon.com/MinnMax2Ns, unlock the exclusive podcast feed, which also gives you access to a lot of other exclusive shows like MinnFacts, also stuff like The Deepest Dives on Final Fantasy VII Remake, stuff like that, moving into the past, moving into the future. So that is how you're going to listen to this thing. But, Jeff Cork, every month we're looking to check in, and to get back to your question, I think we're choosing different goals.
Okay, cool.
In the discussion about what this show could be, I believe you talked about like, oh, maybe we should have like a theme every time. But I think part of the fun is seeing what we choose, what the community chooses for how they want to improve themselves. Because, I mean, this could be all over the place. This could be learning a new skill, learning how to change the oil on your car. It could be, working on relationships with certain people in your lives. It could be volunteering, writing, doing stuff you've been putting off for a really long time. I think the fun thing is we want to be surprised by what the community picks as their goal. And so every episode, we're going to talk about how we're doing with our goals that we're setting at the top of every month. And then back half of the show is going to be the community calling in to talk about what they want to do, how they're doing, and then it loops over month to month to month to month to month.
Yes.
Does that make sense, Jeff?
It totally makes sense. And tone-wise, is this like a nice, supportive, fun place, or can we, like, if someone, like maybe me or maybe like you, has just a goal that is the dumbest thing you've ever heard of, can you kind of get roasted a little bit, or is it all about being positive?
Positive bent, but positive with razor sharp wit, like you have, Jeff Cork.
Okay. But we'll keep the snark at like a 2 or 3 maybe out of 10.
Yeah, you don't want to snark anybody from the community out of existence, but we need to talk about how this is going for you, because I'm sure some of these goals are going to be challenging. There's going to be trials and tribulations along the way, and so that's what I want to talk about when the community calls in every month, is just trying to unpack how is this going for you, what's more challenging than you thought, why haven't you done this sooner, that general stuff.
Yeah, I think what I'm most excited about is just to know that, like, as with anything, the planned version of a thing ends up being different from the final product in a lot of creative endeavors, and I think that even more so with BetterQuest, just because the community involvement is such a big deal. So I'm genuinely really excited to see what happens, because I have a feeling it's going to eventually, like, several episodes in, be a different thing than maybe we'd anticipated, or maybe it'll be like I'm hoping it'll be better in a lot of ways too. But I think what we have, like, for our format that we've talked about earlier, I'm really excited about it. Yeah,
being able to have the community call in and talk to them about how they're doing and stuff is going to be great. And so another thing is I hate limiting who can call in with the community. At the same time, it's a podcast and we can't be on the phone line for 10 hours straight. And so it's going to be limited to the folks at the $20 tier on Patreon. So patreon.com/MinnMax2Ns. If you just want to support us for 1 month and call in, talk about your goal, that's totally fine, or whatever you're up for. So it's going to be that tier, the MinnFacts tier, that will be able to call in and talk about how things are going. But at the same time, this is an opportunity for everybody to get better. So we can create a channel in the MinnMax Discord, which you get access to if you support us at any tier whatsoever. And I think there's going to be a lot of community involvement outside of the show, in the comments, stuff like that. So even if you're not able to call in, we encourage you to come up with your own goals every month and leave a comment. Let us know how you're doing, everything like that. We don't want to exclude anybody, but we're trying to limit the pool for our own sanity here.
Yes. And you, like, if as a listener, you have to make goals for yourself. You don't get to make goals for us, like silly stunts like shave off that awful gross beard or maybe learn how to button your shirt. That's for us to live our own lives. We get to come up with our own goals.
That's right. Do you know, Cork, you don't reveal it, but do you know what your first goal is going to be or what your first quest is going to be here for the first month?
I've been narrowed down to a few.
I do as well. And it's very fun. It's almost like, MinnMax, a music podcast where we're kind of surprising each other every month with what this is going to be and what we're going to be talking about with our own personal picks, And so it's a tough thing of like, oh, do I counter program Cork's pick because I have a ballpark of probably where you're going?
Yeah.
And so I have a big list now and I'm trying to whittle it down. But I'm excited to see what the community picks and what they're going to be. I don't know. I think people are going to be really creative. I want to be surprised by what your quest is throughout that month. And I think people are going to come and swing.
Oh, I need to be better about not interrupting people.
Mission accomplished.
But that's not my one. I'm not doing that. No way, baby. So I have a question. Do you want people to have, do you think it's more helpful for people to have things that are easily quantifiable rather than just saying like, I want to be a better son? Like that could be a part of a larger goal, but then your actual way of this, like, I want to call my parents every 2 days.
I think that helps.
And have something good to say.
That's right.
In those conversations.
I've always hated you, Click. I think that helps a little bit. Not necessary, but I think having those more tangible goals would be nice, and some numbers involved would be more fun for checking in the following month to let us know how you're doing. And I'm looking forward to this as a nerd of hopefully not to a creepy degree, but while we're doing those call-ins of taking notes of I'll use Bob Buell as an example from somebody from the community. You hear this, Bob? But Bob's like, I'm going to build a model airplane. I've always dreamt of building a model airplane. Taking notes on, model airplane for Bob, and then checking in every month, and he can change his thing every month, or he can stick with that. That's the whole idea. And look, it kind of comes from, that Games Friends and Getting Better thing came out early in the planning stages of MinnMax overall, just because it was... MinnMax was kind of founded in a dark period professionally and personally to some extent. And so it was just that feeling of what, F it. We should probably swing for the fences here and try and do something cool, and not just as an outlet, but also just personally. Just every once in a while, you have those waves that hit you, whether it's a death or something that will kind of trigger this feeling, and you have just what are we doing here? Why are we not giving it our all? Why do I have a list of 60 things I want to do in my phone that are just sitting there? It'll drive you nuts.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I like the idea of it being everyone wants to say I want to be nicer to people. And I think that's important. But I think I want to be a good person. That's great. But I like having more of a drilled in focus on one particular thing each time as well. Because I think you do enough of those, and then just naturally... objectively speaking, I hope St. Peter will eventually look at this checklist when I'm at the pearly gates and they'll say, Jeff Cork, you were a good person because you did all these things.
Yeah, I guess. Get on in there, kid. You barely squeaked by. We're going to open the gate a little bit and you have to squeeze through uncomfortably. Yeah, and that's a good reminder too. You don't have to say, I'm going to climb Mount Everest for the first goal. It could be very small. Whatever you want. We'll take all sizes, all skill ranges, all anything. But it's just about holding a way to hold you accountable for getting better in your life.
But you should also kind of think it through a little bit. If you're just what, I've really been putting it off. I want to take better care of my teeth. I want to go to the dentist. Well, if you don't have any openings till next January, that doesn't do you any good this month. Come on. Yeah, maybe do some of the legwork ahead of time.
Right.
Just to see if this is even possible before you commit to it. It'd be a very shameful call later that month.
Oh, hell. And if you don't want to call in the next month, that's totally fine too, if you realize it's an absolute disaster. But we would like to hear from you month after month.
Fun.
That's the goal.
Yeah, because I'll have to tell you about every one of my huge disasters.
Oh, so many of them. I see this thing on Twitter all the time, Cork, and Twitter drives me nuts in general. Maybe that can be one of my things, is stop being driven insane by Twitter. But I see this thing every once in a while where people go hey, I'm thinking about doing this. What do y'all think? I'm thinking about starting a new podcast. I'm thinking about this. And then it just never happens. And that stuff drives me insane. So hopefully this show will motivate people in that realm, right? Of stop saying, oh, what if I did this? Would you guys like it if I did this? Like, the internet's answer. They're going to say yes. Just do it. Just do that stupid thing.
Yeah. And I also, this is just me speaking personally. Everyone's going to do their own thing. I like the idea of the things being something you do and not removing things. You know what I mean? Like, I think that, like, eliminating, like, booze out of your life is a phenomenal thing to do.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of, like, incorporating new stuff into your life and improving that way, than, like, being like, I want to stop eating as many almonds. It's like, that's not interesting. Because, I mean, like, what do you talk about? Like, unless it's, like, a huge struggle, but it's just, like...
At the same time, if somebody's saying, I want to go sober for a month, I don't want to just
That's what I said. Like, that's great. That's absolutely fantastic. But at the same time, like... do that, but then also make it a double whammy and say, like, and with that I'm going to drink water.
You won't believe how much water I'm going to drink. Because that makes for a much more interesting podcast with somebody bragging about how much water they're drinking.
Yeah, Tim Turry over here.
Oh, Christ.
Nalgene.
Little sparkling. He got at me the other day because he's like, hey, I saw you chugging down way too much bubbly, more bubbly, sparkly water than any human being should drink. And then he got at me about it, saying like, I got some crazy machine in my house that makes it, and I've saved a lot of money. But then you have to send in CO2 cartridges through the mail and stuff. And I was like, yeah, no way. But he still calls me an idiot for not doing this. So please, let me know in the comments, am I an idiot for still buying bubbly and drinking sparkling water like a moron?
This month I'm blocking Tim Turry on my phone. No more!
Get out of here! Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us on this journey. This is going to be a weird one and a big one, Cork.
Yeah, it's going to be super fun.
I keep thinking like, once a month, we don't have to go through a show, but then it's like, oh no, this is the biggest thing we could possibly tackle. Yeah,
it is like it's like those classes in college that are just like, you Monday, Wednesday, Friday, it's only an hour. Then you could do like a Tuesday, Thursday, that's a couple hours. Right. There's always the one that's just like a Thursday evening course, and when you're signing up for it, you're like, how bad could this be? It's always bad because it's so much time and you don't think about it until like hour 4 of this lecture. You're like, oh my Lord. So I think that like it's gonna be super fun, but it's like, but it's just like, oh yeah, the one podcast part is gonna be the fun part. But
right.
Depending on your goal, it's gonna be a lot of work, but I think it's gonna be worth doing because that's the whole point of this little thing.
Absolutely. So the first episode, which obviously, we're not going to be reporting on how we're doing, so it's going to be a shorter episode overall, but it's going to be June 4th, this coming Thursday at 6 p.m. Central. So it's going to be the first episode where we're going to lay out our goals. We'll reveal our goals in a very cutesy ceremony to each other, and then also have the community call in, and they can say what their goal is for the month of June. And so if you're interested, you can support us at that $20 tier, and then we'll have you call in. There'll be a post over at patreon.com/MinnMax to ends saying exactly how the call-in works. It'll be through the Discord channel, which is exclusive to $20 supporters, the specific part of the Discord channel, not the overall Discord channel. That's all great and filled with wonderful people. Logistics of the Patreon, Cork. That's what I need to get better at. But hey, if you enjoy what we're doing here, any help telling a friend would be appreciated. And good luck, everybody. You have a week to figure out what you're going to get better at, and no takesy-backsies, as they say.
Yeah. Do you want people to chat about it on the Discord, or do you want everyone to kind of keep it to yourself for the time being? What do you think?
I think it's kind of fun if the community surprises each other with it, but I don't want to tell them what to do. They're their own entity. They're creative people. They can figure it out. But this should be a grand adventure, and we can't wait to share it with you, the MinnMax community. So, all right. We'll see you next week for the first real episode of BetterQuest. Be good, have fun, let's go! MinnMax is a Patreon about games, friends, and getting better. The Deepest Dive is the best, most thorough discussions about games on the internet. Prove us wrong, please. The MinnMax Show podcast airs every Thursday. Patreon supporters vote on what we stream every single week, and a whole lot more. Give us a shot, try subscribing to the YouTube channel, and we hope we can win you over.